Unit 1d3 is about aperture mode. To do aperture mode, first I want to teach you a little bit about aperture mode. Now, it might be called A mode or AV mode, depending on what kind of camera you've got. The models of different camera companies name it different things, but it's aperture or aperture value is what that stands for. You adjust the aperture value in aperture mode, and the camera adjusts everything else. So when you pick a big aperture value, the camera adjusts the shutter and the ISO speeds to match the aperture you are picking. Why are you changing the aperture? Well, before I get to that, aperture is given as an F number, so like f8 or f12 or f2 is your aperture. And the aperture number is an indication of how wide the diaphragm of the camera is open. The diaphragm lets in light. Do you want to let in a wide amount of light or a narrow amount of light? So aperture means opening, and by changing the aperture number, you're changing, enlarging, or shrinking the opening that light goes through to get to that CCD inside the camera. Now, why would you do that? Well, you do it to change depth of field. Depth of field is about focal plane. Right now, that camera has a narrow depth of field, the camera recording me. So the hand that's close to you should be out of focus. The hand that's here should be in focus. That's because right now I have my camera set to a narrow depth of field. I want myself in focus, but everything else blurry. So anything that's close to the camera or far away from the camera, get that in there, should be blurry, should be out of focus. So a narrow depth of field, and in order to get a narrow depth of field, I need to have a lower aperture value. So I get a deep focal plane from a higher value, or a lower aperture value gives me a shallower focal plane. Sometimes you want deep, sometimes you want shallow. Aperture is the key to how you do that.